I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and you are listening to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is episode number 362. Welcome to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. If you're a woman and you're smart and you're successful and you've been struggling with weight your whole life, and now menopause is making it harder than ever, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to go on a diet again, then this podcast is for you. Stay tuned. Well, hello, all my dear friends all over the world. I don't know about you. Daylight savings time is different everywhere all over the world. Some do it, some don't. But for me, today is the first day of a time change. So spring has sprung, the clocks are ahead, and I got to get used to it. So I'm doing my podcast. This is usually when I do it, but it's a little bit later, but the same time, just because everything has changed a little bit with the clocks. So it takes me a minute or two to kind of get used to this whole thing. What about you? But what I really want to talk to you about today, I was just thinking about that with daylight savings time. And one of the things that happened this week for me is I got a letter from one of my podcast listeners. And I want to encourage all of you, if you get my newsletters that I send out every week. I always talk a little bit about the podcast. I like to give you my insight on whatever it was that I was talking about, and also give you an opportunity to ask me questions. So this listener, her name is Denise, she actually sent me a great question, and I wanted to answer it on air with you because I think there's probably a lot of you that have the same question. And one of the things that I talk about in my Thinner Peace process, well, the biggest thing that I talk about, and I think the thing that resonates with most of you that listen to me on a regular basis, is you love the idea, and yet it seems so foreign, of eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. And yet all of us know that that is the way that we're wired, that our bodies are wired to make sure that we get enough fuel or food into our bodies. And the way that our body makes sure that we get enough fuel in our body is by, well, probably more intricate than I could ever explain, how our body works to actually make us hungry and make us full. But it does have to do with hormones. There are absolutely hunger hormones and fullness hormones. And working within the nervous system and the endocrine system and being a chiropractor, I certainly learned a lot about that and learned to have a lot of respect for it. And even though I had a lot of respect for it, knew a lot about it, as a woman in this culture, all I ever did was eat when I wasn't hungry and didn't think anything of it because I thought following an external diet program would be a much safer way of making sure that I didn't gain weight. Like I didn't believe that I could actually trust myself and my body and to choose the right things for myself. So I learned at a very early age that the only way to have a thin body was to be able to trust something outside of myself that somehow would know more about when I should eat and when I shouldn't eat, and what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat. And the process that I've created, this Thinner Peace process that I've created, is actually based on the idea of eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. And also the concept that when you are beginning menopause, going through menopause, or really, literally just that you're getting older, is that many things change in our body over time as we get older. And one of those things for sure happens to be metabolism. And one of the things with metabolism is that because it slows down, it also means that our appetite slows down, which means literally, and I know this is hard for a lot of you to believe who are in menopause because I read a lot of your comments about talking about your hunger and saying you're hungry all the time since you've been in menopause. But I beg to differ with that because I think that a lot of people, when they're going through menopause, feel like they're hungry all the time because they don't know the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger. Because emotional hunger can feel very much like physical hunger. And emotional hunger can never be fulfilled by food, which means you could be eating forever and never feel fulfilled. And probably some of you have done that. You know, when I talk about the idea of binging or storming, that's just eating lots and lots and lots of food and never really feeling fulfilled. And at the same time, knowing you shouldn't be doing it. And at the same time, thinking that you can't stop yourself. And at the same time, thinking that somehow this is going to make you feel better. And this is the kind of system that you've set up in your own body instead of listening to your body when it says, feed me, and listening to your body when it says, stop. And also the concept of listening to your body with emotions. Because when you get very familiar with your own emotions and with your own emotional hunger, you can realize that emotional hunger can sometimes be in the exact same place as physical hunger, like around your gut. For me, whenever I'm really stressed out, I feel it in my gut. I feel like I've been punched in the stomach. And whenever I'm extremely happy or overjoyed, in the same place in my stomach, I feel light, but I also feel like I could jump off the ground and there's butterflies fluttering around my whole system. It also can make me believe that that's physical hunger and I should be eating. It's interesting. But here, Denise sent me a letter, and the reason that I want to use it in response to the whole idea of why I teach how to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, and why it's so important, especially when you're in menopause. Because here's the problem. If you never really knew when you were hungry or full before menopause, it's going to get very, very confusing when you get in menopause. Because guess what happens in menopause if you all haven't noticed? Emotions get stronger. And if you're used to eating strong negative emotions, you might think your appetite has increased, but your emotional hunger has increased. It's time to meet your emotional hunger. It's time to meet your physical hunger, especially if you're in menopause, and get familiar with it. So I want to read this letter that Denise sent to me, and then I want to talk about it in response to the whole idea of eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're full, knowing that if you haven't heard me talk about my physical hunger scale before, that, you know, we go from a -10 to starving to a +10 that's full, if you can imagine this in your head, and that I want you to begin to eat when you're at a -2, which is the whisper of hunger, and to stop eating at a +2, which is the beginning and whisper of fullness and satisfaction. And it's really a very small increment, and you don't need a lot of food, and you do have to be very in tune to these feelings. But I also believe that we were wired to do it this way. And we also know, at least I know, and I'm sure a lot of you know, you can eat a heck of a lot more, that there's a lot of room in there that you can stuff into there, even when you're not hungry. That's just the way our stomachs work, is it actually can stretch, and they actually have figured out how to deal with the stomach and how to do surgery on the stomach, bariatric surgery, so that you can actually limit how much food you put in physiologically. But this is what I want to really talk about, is that we're really made to know when that feeling is. We've just crossed it so many times that we've learned to ignore it, and that we need to retrain and reteach our brains and our bodies to reconnect to this hunger and to this fullness. The brain has a lot to do with it, and the physical body has a lot to do with it. And that connection is the most important thing that you were born with that you need to relearn. So here's the letter that Denise writes to me. Thank you for your podcasts. They are making a lot of sense. I hope I can ask you a question here. I'm just going to answer for her and for everybody that's listening. You can absolutely write me questions, and you can either be coached on the podcast with me, or I can just answer them like I'm doing it right now, or I can just send you an email. But when it's a really common question, I'd love to answer it on the podcast. So here's her question. How can you only eat when hungry if you have a family that eats with you some meals and you have set eating times at work? Very good question. And the way that I like to think about it is, can you imagine if these were children, kids, and you fed them a meal and they weren't hungry? What would they do? Would they eat anyway? I'll tell you what, they wouldn't. You could put all the food in front of them. You can say it's dinner time. You can say it's lunchtime. You can say whatever you want to say to them. You can put food on the table. They're not going to eat it if they're not hungry. Now, the question here makes me assume that Denise does eat when she's not hungry because she thinks that she has to. Either work has times when you're supposed to eat, or she makes meals for her family and she thinks that she needs to eat. But this is the way that I would work it if I were you, Denise, and for all of you that are listening, is the first thing that I would do, because this is an interesting concept to ponder, is what do you do when you're around a lot of people and it's a meal time and your body says, please don't feed me, I'm not hungry? Well, the most common, easiest answer to tell you is you don't eat, period. Because you think you should eat, my guess is you are eating even when you're not hungry. And so the first thing that I would do to find out exactly where you are, for all of you who are in situations like this, is to begin a very simple process of food journaling that I've created. And what I want you to do with this simple process is, for the next, say, 3 to 5 days, you can get my food journal in my companion book by going to drdebButler.com/change, CHANGE. And my food journals are in there how I like you to do them. But the only thing that I want you to fill out in these food journals is the time that you ate, what you ate, and your physical hunger scale before and after. And I want you to do that every time you sit down to eat. Every single time. And regardless of what you do, write down your hunger scale before and after and what you ate. So the first thing you're going to find out is, are you hungry at the times that you're making these meals? Really, where are you? Are you at a -1? Are you at a -2? Just ready to eat? Are you starving, -5? Or are you at like a +1? Because maybe you ate something an hour ago and you're really not hungry. So the first thing is finding out what's going on inside of your body with this simple process of food journaling your physical hunger scale before and after. Now, once you can see what you're doing, are you finding that the meals that you cook, that you're with your family, you're never hungry? Well, isn't that fascinating to just look at that? Why? What are you doing? When are you eating? Why are you eating? You start asking your questions to yourself and you become more curious about what's going on for you. So first, I want you to get familiar with your own body. So you're telling me I have a schedule. And what I'm saying to you, with your schedule, write down when you're eating and why you're eating, as your schedule is, so you can see exactly what you're doing. Now, once you understand what you're doing, 2 things can happen. Either one, you're going to find out that you're eating more often than you need to. Like, you may be eating a lot when you're not hungry, not just at a mealtime. Or you may find out that you're really hungry an hour before the mealtime, and that's when you want to eat, or that's when you do eat. That's interesting. I would be curious about that. The main thing that I think I want to impart to Denise and to you right now is that if you have set meal times at this point in time, the purpose of it is, I guess, is to feed your family and hopefully to have time to be with your family if they're family meals. If they're social meals, it's something different, whatever it is. If you're not hungry, you don't have to eat. You can feed other people, cook for other people. And you, my darling, if you're already at a +2, you just don't eat. I want you to get into the idea that I don't eat when I'm not hungry, as opposed to I'm supposed to eat at certain times no matter what. I want you to be the one that decides, do I or don't I? Am I hungry or am I not hungry? I mean, number one, maybe you want to manipulate your meal times a little bit and change the times once you see what's going on with you. Maybe it's possible that you want to eat ahead of time just because you're a lot hungrier. You can possibly do that. Maybe if you find yourself that if you waited to a mealtime and you would be too hungry, say a -4, number one, you can let yourself do that because you can actually get a little extra hungry and the whole world won't fall apart if you wait. But if you find out that when the meal time comes, you just don't have hunger for whatever reason, you just don't eat. I know that sounds interesting. And well, what would I do? You just wouldn't eat. You would be with your family without eating, or you would figure out a way to do it so that you could be hungry. But what I would like you to find out is why you're not hungry if you're not. You need to figure out what's going on for you. And when you're in a job, it's the same thing. If there are allocated times for eating, my guess is some of those times you are going to be hungry. And if you're not, and you start food journaling for 4 or 5 days, you're going to see what your pattern is as to why you're not hungry. Just because somebody says it's time to eat does not mean you have to eat. It also means that sometimes you may want to eat when it's not an allocated time. How do you handle that? What do you tell yourself? Once you know when you need to eat and when you don't, and you start paying attention to that and respecting that, I think a lot of things will change for you. Once you know what you're doing and what your body is doing, then you can see why you're reacting the way you're reacting, either at meal times or at work. And are you eating anyway, even if you're not hungry? I'd be very curious about that and fascinated about why would you do that? So that's the way that I want to answer that for you today. I want you to first understand that just because a meal is served does not mean you need to eat. The second thing I want you to realize is that you have a body that will tell you what it needs and when it needs it. And you also have the ability to really pay attention to it. And let's just say that you eat at 6 o'clock in the evening and you notice that at 4 o'clock or 4:30, you're coming around to -2. You could eat just a little bit of fuel food, bring yourself up just a little bit, and wait for dinner. And then you're still eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. Or you can let yourself get a little hungrier. You'll be a little bit more hungry at dinner. What's that like for you? Because you absolutely can be a little extra hungry and still control the whole show. But you get to decide how you want to do it because it's your body and your body is in training and you are in training. And we have a lot to do with how our body is scheduled by how we treat it. Okay. So for all of you who are listening to this, who are eating when they're not hungry, either at planned meals with family, friends, or whoever, or you're on a work schedule and you have a time to eat when you're not hungry, have a look at it. What do you do instead? Come up with that brilliant brain of yours and figure out, how can I eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full? Once I know what my body needs, that's the question you need to ask yourself. The other thing that I want to say about this is that a lot of the problem has nothing to do with this. Because what I find with most of my clients is this. They eat something that they really like, and they get to a +2, and they want to keep eating. So many of my clients, when they first hire me, are eating to 3s and 4s and 5s only because the food tastes good and they want to keep eating it, or only because there's something going on emotionally and they don't want to feel it. Overeating is probably the biggest problem to weighing more than you want to weigh, is when you're using food for reasons other than physical hunger. So the question that Denise gives me today is probably not the biggest problem. And my guess is for her, it's not. But it's an easier problem to overcome because first you can figure out what is it like for your body right now for the next 4 to 5 days. When do you get hungry? When do you want to eat? Do you know what a +2 is? Do you know what your numbers are? You get familiar with yourself first and then see if the way that I told you to go about this is more helpful for you. You got to know yourself first. You also have to understand why you eat when you're not hungry, and it has nothing to do with a meal being planned and food sitting in front of you, but because there's something else going on in you. Even with a planned meal, something that's going on in you that you may eat is out of obligation to eat. Obligation is not a good reason to eat. It's emotional hunger. You feel obligated. Sometimes it's just an urge. Ooh, that looks so good. I want to keep eating it. Or, ooh, I can't control myself. Get familiar with yourself. Find out what goes on for you. And then maybe you can find out the answers for you with the questions that Denise asked. So go learn about yourself this week. Understand your numbers. Understand what you think you have to do if you're not hungry. Understand why you eat when you're not hungry. I am telling you, by next week, you will be able to answer some of these questions if you don't know the answers to them yet. So, before I end this podcast, you know what else I'm going to say. Number one, in case you haven't heard me say it, my group program will be opening soon. So if you want to be on the wait list, go to drdebbutler.com/peace, PEACE, and you can get on the wait list, find out when it's opening, be the first to sign up so you don't miss out. And the other thing that I want to say is that no matter where you go or what you do, more than anything else, of everything that I've been teaching you for the last 6 years, is this. Please, please, please be very, very kind to yourself, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye. If you're loving my podcast and you would like some more information to be able to follow along with, then please go to drdebbutler.com/change, and you can get a free copy of my companion book that goes with this podcast that I refer to in many different episodes. That is drdebbutler.com/change, CHANGE.